Hello everyone, welcome to the TriStar Gym channel. Today's episode, I'm answering your most popular questions on training. The last AMA video post I put to collect your questions was the most amount of questions I've ever received. So I want to thank you all for your participation. Because I received so many questions, I'm going to be changing up the way I do things a little bit on this channel. What I'm going to do is, instead of answering a whole bunch of questions and keeping them super short and moving on to the next question really fast, what I'm going to try to do is answer just between three and five questions every episode, and give you guys an email where you guys can send me your questions just specifically to have them answered on video. So you guys can send me your future questions at zahabimailbag@gmail.com. That email is in the description. If you have a question you want to send me, please feel free. Find that email. It's in the description and send it to my mailbag. And I'll keep that mailbag just for answering your questions here on YouTube. Thank you again, all of you who participated. The last video got a lot of views and a lot of questions asked. Hundreds and hundreds of questions asked just the first few hours. So the first question I have here is from Tyke Myson. How do I build cardio everywhere? In boxing, arms and shoulders get tired. You hit the speed bag. BJJ, that squeeze drains you. What is the most effective and best way to build your cardio for every martial art, from wrestling to taekwondo, etc.? Thanks in advance. Well, you're very correct on that. You know, if you take somebody who's really fit in boxing, you put him on the grappling mat, all of a sudden his cardio just seems horrible. And if you take a guy who has really good cardio on the jiu-jitsu mat, you put him in the ring, he gasses out. So what does that tell us? What's the number one thing we can draw from that is technique is number one. Technique is number one. If you give me a guy who's a CrossFit champion and you put him on the mat with me and he's never done jiu-jitsu before, he will get tired first. Okay, so number one on the board, you're asking me which one is going to give me cardio everywhere. Number one on the board, in my opinion, is skill. Okay, efficiency. Whatever cardio you already have, you got to multiply it. Okay, so you're spending too much energy. If you have to force something to make it work, you don't have enough leverage. You know, number one is always find more leverage. Okay, make it easier for yourself. So that's something you have to talk to your instructor. You got to tell him, hey coach, I got tired in this position. I was in this scenario and I got tired. Because you didn't just get tired from rolling. There was a particular scenario that made you tired. Maybe you were stuck on the bottom and mount. Maybe the person had your back and you tried an escape that was highly inefficient, and that's what burned you out. Try to zero in on exactly what it is that's making you tired. It's not just boxing. That's too much of a vague description. Coach, I got tired boxing. What part of the boxing portion of the training made you tired? You know, what part of the wrestling the wrestling transitions made you tired? Where was it that you started to feel that you had to exert more energy than you had? Okay, that's the number one. Try to investigate your technique a little bit deeper. Number two, I would say that the number one component for energy is your cardiovascular system. So I believe in running. I believe in sprinting. I believe that the track is the number one way to get fit for combat sports. So a lot of people are going to tell you, swing a kettlebell, do body weight exercise. A lot of people are going to tell you all these sorts of crazy things. And they're all good. They're all part of the puzzle. You know, I shouldn't say they're crazy. They're not crazy. They're all part of the puzzle. However, the number one, if you had to tell me that what is the majority of people's problems, I would say it's the cardiovascular system. Raise your VO2 max. Increase your cardiovascular strength. That feeds all systems. So the number one fitness I always focus on is the cardiovascular system. First is skill, then the cardiovascular system, and then the musculature system. Okay, you need to be able to do body weight. You need to have certain level of pull-ups, and you need to have a certain level of maximal lift. Okay, so maximal lift is how heavy can you lift. You know, I don't personally believe you need to squat 3 times your body weight. I think that's absurd. Show me one world champion in wrestling that squats 3 times their body weight. There is none. If you had to squat 3 times your body weight, if you make that a goal, you'll never have that. That takes so much resources. So much time and energy and recovery time. How are you going to get good at jiu-jitsu? That's my question to you. The only way I could see somebody who's a world champion not world champion, I should say that, somebody who could squat 3 times their body weight and is a stud on the mat, who is a world champion on the mat, usually would be somebody who's a genetic freak. Okay, he's built for squatting, or he's had a lifetime of training in squatting and a lifetime of training in jiu-jitsu. So a lifetime of training for me is 10 to 20 years. You know, you've done that's most people will spend that amount of time to become world champion. So if you train from 0 to 10 years, you can start becoming, after 10 years, you could start scoring, real authentic world championships and so on. Then after that, if you focus on your squat after you've done your jiu-jitsu career, yeah, you'll hit that goal. But to simultaneously hit those two goals, I think is just too much. You need 48 hours in a day. You wouldn't have the time, in my opinion, to do it unless you're a genetic freak, unless you're taking heavy amounts of steroids, etc., unless you're doing these other things that for the average Joe, it's highly, highly unlikely. For a mixed martial artist who has to learn wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, striking, all these crazy things, you have to learn Thai clinching, you have to learn how to elbow, you have to learn how to knee, you have to learn how to ground and pound. There's so many things to learn. Don't waste all your time and energy on the squat rack. So, Tyke Myson, my answer to you is, 1, skills. Get really, 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 really detailed on your skills. What's making you tired? What part of your skill work is not right, that's fatiguing you? And 2, cardiovascular system. Get that out of the way every week. And then do your push-ups and sit-ups, etc. after that, you know? So get the most important stuff out of the way. Next question here is from Catch a Has Catch Can. Oh, excuse me. Catch as catch can. That's a weird one. Okay, I think that is a catch wrestling terminology. I'm a brown belt. Can I promote my deserving friend to purple belt? No. That's my my answer to you. If you are a brown belt, you should not give purple belts to anybody. I don't think it will be recognized by other black belts. What you should do, Catch Can, you should find a black belt that will allow you to give you, who'll give you permission to promote a certain friend to blue belt. So what I would do is go find a neighboring black belt, go do a drop-in class, work with him once in a while, take your white belt friend that you believe, your blue belt friend that you say deserves a purple belt, and nominate him to the black belt after a while. Get to know each other. Tell him, hey, my friend's a blue belt. Can I ask you in private, do you think he should get a purple belt? Is he purple belt material? If so, ask him then, can I promote him with you? You know, can I be there when you promote him, etc. Maybe some trainers will allow that. I do allow that in special circumstances. If a very talented blue belt was trained by a brown belt from somewhere, they both come and train with me on a regular basis, when I promote that blue belt to purple belt, I will do it via the instructor from the other school. I will do that. However, the the purple belt is still coming from me, but I'm trying to maintain that relationship he has with his instructor. You know, I really believe that if the instructor is helping him grow his game, he should be part of the promotional process. But you cannot promote to purple belt if you are a brown belt. My understanding of the system, this is not done. I've never seen it done. I've never done it. I would never try to do it. I don't think it should be done. Only black belts should promote purple belts. So in my opinion, don't give him a purple belt. Find a black belt that you can train with on a regular basis. Maybe he's an hour away from you, 45 minutes away from you. Talk to him. Nominate your buddy. And some instructors are more open-minded than others, but I really highly recommend you do not give him a purple belt. Next question. This one is from Drifter. Drifter wants to know, what would the UFC look like with today's competitors if it had the original format of the first 4 UFCs? No time limit, very few rules, no rounds, judges, etc. Man, the fights would be amazing. I think that would be a brilliant idea. I've always advocated that there should be no rounds. Excuse me. And just so you guys know, the first UFC did have rounds. The first UFC, it did have rounds, and no fight went to the second round. All the fights were done in the first couple of minutes. However, they did have rounds. They just didn't need them. So it's not true to say that the first UFC didn't have rounds. But however, the later UFCs, the 2, 3, and 4, did not have rounds. You're correct on saying that. So I would tell you, I think that would be amazing. And here's what would change. What would change? The grapplers would do a lot better. The grapplers would do a lot better in UFC if there was no rounds. Why? Think about it. You got 5 minutes to take. You got to take the guy. Let's say you're a grappler. You got to take the guy down. Okay, let's say that takes you 2 minutes. Now you only got 3 minutes on the ground to work, and the guy on the bottom knows he's only got to hold out for 3 more minutes, and he gets to start all over on his feet, and he's still got 2 more rounds to bank. However, if the guy on the bottom thinks in his mind, he's thinking, hey, I got 13 more minutes I got to survive. Then he's going to try to escape. Instead of stalling on the bottom, locking his guard, just kind of holding on and doing nothing, he's going to say, look, this guy's eventually going to break through my defenses. I got to hold for 13 minutes instead of just for 3 more minutes. Okay, so in my opinion, if you look at the Pride rules where you had the first round was 10 minutes long. Remember, the Pride rules, it was one 10-minute round, then a 5-minute round. you saw a lot more grappling. You saw a lot more submissions. Why? Because submission is time sensitive. Submission is not, boxing, striking is not as time sensitive. I can need only half a second to knock you out. The damage could be done that quickly. To pass your guard, take your back, hold you down, put you in a choke, it takes more time. And what if you don't get the guy down in the first 2 minutes, which is very possible? Well, now you got less and less time. So even if things go well, you only have 3 minutes. So as a fun experiment, next time you roll, tell yourself, hey, I'm going to try to sub this guy in 3 minutes. Go. And you tell the guy, hey, I'm just try to survive for 3 minutes. It's very different than rolling for 10, 15 minutes or having an opponent who's trying to work jiu-jitsu and try to fight you back. Jiu-jitsu is a style, it's a counter-attack style. It's a counter-attack art. Jiu-jitsu is a counter-attack art. You do this, my response is this counter. However, if the guy does nothing and just kind of shells up, it's really hard to sub them. It becomes harder to sub them. So it would make a huge difference in jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu guys would have a lot more opportunity. Think of every single fight you've ever seen in UFC where the grappler gets on top, finally, and then the bell rings and he has to start all over. Why don't they start them exactly back in the same position they were in? I really believe that. I mean, if you're going to end round number 1 in mount, we should start round number 2 with me in mount. If I was in mount in round number 1, why should the bell save you from that horrible position? I should start again in mount. That's just the nature of jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu needs more time. We're really hurting the jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, because of the time limit. Jiu-jitsu will be far, far more effective. And I think in the future, people will get wiser to that. The first round, at least, like in Pride, should be 10 minutes. At least it should be 10 minutes. You'll get a lot more subs. You'll get a lot more interesting fights. Let's take Krokop, for example. Krokop was highly successful in Pride. Now, of course, there wasn't steroid tests and all that, so there's going to be a lot of you are going to mention that. I agree with you 100%. That's a major factor. However, when he fought Gonzaga in his first fight in UFC, he got taken down early. When he got back to his feet, I think he only had a minute or two. I can't remember exactly. But you saw he had to rush. He was rushing the process. If that was Pride, he would have had 8 more minutes on the clock. He would have had, he would have had a lot more time to pick his shots, to be calculated, to just, lay in that liver kick, that head kick. But when he got up to his feet, he was rushed, and he ended up getting hit. And that's what happens when you rush the process. You make mistakes, you take bigger gambles, and that's what happened with him and Gonzaga. At least that's how I saw it. I saw that he felt pressed for time. In Pride, the strikers had to deal with the jiu-jitsu in a more intelligent manner. And when they got to their feet, the strikers could take their time. They were more, they could pick their shots, etc. So it works against both styles, but more so against the grappler, in my opinion. More so against the grappler. Because I can think of instances where it hurt the grappler and instances where it hurt the striker. But definitely grapplers don't want to get started back up on the ground. I want to be in a fight and I only want to need one takedown. I don't want to have to take my opponent down over and over again. All right, next question. This one is from Mr. Gunner Guy. Mr. Gunner Guy 123. When training leg locks, how do you ensure that you are learning the technique effectively while avoiding injuries? Also, is there a fine line between going too hard and going too soft in training? Excellent question, Mr. Gunner Guy. I absolutely agree with you. There is a safe way. You're asking me if there's a safe way. When I do heel hooks at the gym, at TriStar Gym, I am very, very delicate, and I make sure, I always tell people, guys, in this gym, when you do a leg lock, you just hold the leg. If you do a heel hook, you don't rip the heel. We hold it. If I can hold your heel hook for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, I win. The match is over. If I can hold it snug to my body for 3 seconds, the match is over. Now, the guy I'm wrestling with, he might still be struggling. I tell guys, don't try to prove to him that he's in the hold and finish him. Don't do that. Let him go and practice your plan B. Plan B is what happens when a leg lock fails. Do you just squeeze as hard as you can? If a leg lock fails, you gasp for air and you're gassed out and the guy just gets on top of you and crushes you? Or do all your leg locks lead to sweeps? In my opinion, all leg locks should lead to sweeps if they fail. So what I do is I put you in a heel hook. I don't rip your knee off. I just give you a slight pressure. I hold it for 3 seconds. And then from there, I pretend like the leg lock failed. Okay, I pretend like, okay, let's say this guy got out of the leg lock. What would I do? I would sweep him in this manner, or I would transition to this position. That's what you need to do. Go to practice. Make sure you hurt nobody with your leg locks. Make sure you go to plan B. Plan B is the sweep. Don't rip anybody's heel, injure nobody, and your leg locks will be amazing. When you go into a real jiu-jitsu match and, you're doing a real heel hooks, you heel hook, with pressure. You try to break the guy's ankle and let him tap. The ball's in his court now. This is an actual match. If it fails, you've practiced plan B so much, you've practiced sweeping so much, connecting your leg locks to sweeps, that you're fine. You won't panic. You'll feel great. You'll feel excellent. So that's the culture I like to spread in TriStar Gym. We're very gentle with the heel hooks. And when we know each other, we do tap each other. When we've trained well with each other, the guys who are really seasoned leg locks, we do heel hook each other and we do tap. I don't want to say we never tap each other with heel hooks. That's not true. However, the guys who are more seasoned in heel hooks, I give them more leash. I give them more room to explore the leg locks, and the pressure is gradual, not all of a sudden. Okay, we don't go from 0 to 60 at full blast. The pressure is gradual, and the person will respond, say, I think that's tight. I think you got it. I'll tap. It's more controlled. Controlled is super important, because what happens, you might hurt somebody today, and tomorrow they're heel hooking you. And everybody gets heel hooked. And look, at TriStar, if you come to TriStar and you train every day, eventually you will get heel hooked. Everybody does heel hooks. However, are you going to get hurt? My guys, we don't injure each other. I'm very big on that. It's extremely, extremely rare that somebody gets hurt in my gym. I always tell people, if you hurt somebody in the gym, the blame is always on the person doing the submission hold. Always. I don't care if the guy wasn't tapping. I don't care if the guy was frantic and he was being explosive I don't care. You should have let him go. You should have controlled the hold. Only beginners should hurt people. If you're a white belt and you hurt somebody, I can understand. You don't understand how holds work. You don't understand how to ease into pressure. But colored belts, you should not hurt each other, in my opinion. Now, again, you go to different gyms and they don't have this mindset. They just rip each other's heels. And if your leg breaks, too bad, you should have tapped early. I don't like to personally roll with people like that. When I roll in a club like that, I tap right away. I tell the guy before, look, if you hook my heel, just consider I tap. Don't crank it before I get a chance to tap. I'm going to tap. I don't really mess around too much with heel hooks. I've never been hurt with a heel hook. I've never, ever been hurt with a heel hook. I've never been really hurt with submissions, really. But I tap early. I'm a quick tapper. I don't like my joints getting grinded. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for over 16 years, every day. If I get caught in a hole, I tap. I don't want to find out if I would have got out. That's my mindset. Why? Because I'm going to get good at not letting people put me in submissions, and as opposed to escaping really deep submissions. I'm not the type of guy who's going to really think of escaping these submissions. Unless there's money on the line or a big match on the line, I'm just going to tap and play again and learn from my mistakes. And I think it's really an ego thing, and you just got to drop that. You're not going to get to black belt without getting tapped out a bunch of times. And even when you get to black belt, you're going to get tapped out. It's just part of the game. Make your peace with it. Be very gentle with leg locks. Why? Because if you're too rough with them, it's the knees. Keep your knees healthy. That's my opinion to you, Mr. Gunner guy. And there is such thing as going too hard, too soft. I like to flow roll a lot, but I also roll hard. I do both. There's pros and cons to both. So I would really suggest, days you're feeling run down, flow roll. But don't become one of those guys who only flow rolls, because then you don't really know what works. It works in flow roll. It might not work in high intensity sparring. Okay, so my opinion, use both hard rolling and soft sparring. Interchange the two. Use both. They both have their pros and cons, and be open-minded. All right, guys, I said I was going to keep this short, but I'll do it more frequently, these videos. I will do one more. I'm planning on doing more frequent videos, but shorter ones, and elaborate on the questions more. Don't forget to send your questions to zahabimailbag@gmail.com. The email address will be in the description. This one is from Senior Bush. Which BJJ books would you recommend? There's a lot of good BJJ books. Unfortunately, I don't read a lot of BJJ books, but one that I read and I absolutely love, is the book by Silver Fox called Pravik, Fluid Jiu-Jitsu. Look it up. It's a great, great book. I've had Carl on our show. You guys have seen him. He is one of the best black belts I've ever rolled with, one of the most technical jiu-jitsu masters out there. He's not a guy who competed for a long time. I think he started later in his career, later in age, doing jiu-jitsu. But this guy's a jiu-jitsu genius. Okay? This guy's movement and skill is unbelievable. He has a smart answer to every question I've ever asked him. So I'm going to have him more often on the show. Check out Fluid Jiu-Jitsu. Another book I read a long time ago that I also really, really liked was Jiu-Jitsu University by Saulo Ribeiro. I thought that was really excellent. The first portion of the survival portion, I thought was excellent. A great, great read for beginners. How to defend every position, what positions to get into when you're mounted, how to put your elbows, how to if somebody has your back, how to the the key ways to escape and prevent more deeper grips. He talks about how not to get gripped, etc. I thought that was a great read. University Jiu-Jitsu by Solo Ribeiro, particularly the first half of the book. All right, guys, that is it for another episode. I'm keeping it short and sweet, and hopefully I'll do this more frequently. Thank you for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.
Bonjour, mon nom est Marc-Élie Toussaint, je suis entraîneur de sprint depuis 23 ans. Je travaille au niveau de la vitesse avec Georges Saint-Pierre depuis 4 ans. Je viens de tester le Tim Tam. C'est le meilleur instrument au niveau du relâchement musculaire que j'ai testé de toute ma carrière. Je le recommande à tous.
When you train a lot, you get tight. The best way to loosen up your muscle is the Tim Tam. Hi, I'm Georges Saint-Pierre. I'm using the Tim Tam machine after my training to help me with my recovery.